Go after the doors that are open to you. Do the things that seem to be good opportunities and work hard at it. Try to make good decisions and be nice. Hopefully, all of that will pay off at some point. Chris Stapleton.
The ache for home lives in all of us. The safe place where we can go and not be questioned. Maya Angelou.
An arch consists of weaknesses, which leaning on each other become strength. Leonardo da Vinci.
Good morning. My name is Lily Wendler, and I'm a sixth form boarder from Atlanta, Georgia. Today, as the president of John Hay, which is really something I never thought I would say, I am giving my chapel talk to all of you. And honestly, I'm a little nervous. I began to become a little nervous when Maggie McCarthy and Emma Mason called my name as president of John Hay last May, and by a little nervous, I mean I had to grab the arm of my best friend next to me in order to not fall over. This was not my most graceful moment. Many emotions rushed through my head. I was both beyond happy and very shocked, but definitely nervous, as I knew I would be the first senior to deliver this chapel talk, in the fall. I had no idea what I wanted to say, even though I had known I wanted to give a chapel talk within my first week of arriving on the Hill. However, despite all the topics I thought I might talk about, my inspiration came this past summer when I was attending an architecture pre-college program at Georgia Tech. While I could talk endlessly about all the information I learned at camp, building models, sketching for hours, and sitting through countless lectures, I found that this summer camp taught me a very important lesson about how to build a house for myself. Now, this sounds a little weird, I know. An 18-year-old beginning to build their own house. I mean, I can barely pick out a pair of shoes each day. Trust me, it's not as easy as it may sound. But the house I'm referring to is a little bit more metaphorical than the models I designed this summer. I believe, just like building a house, every person has to construct the life they want to live. We all belong to a neighborhood, or going back to the architectural metaphor, a community. Within this neighborhood, we have the opportunity to choose where we want to build our home, and then we set upon building the foundation that will help us weather any storm. Then we build the walls and the roof. We are able to design the exterior of the house any way we want because what most people in the neighborhood will only see is the exterior. Back home in Atlanta, the house I built for myself was a fortress. Being bullied almost my entire life, I never wanted to let anyone see my true self, and I learned only to rely on myself. The more I felt rejected, the higher I built the walls and hid myself from the world. I developed the mentality that it was easier to simply not speak or interact with people than it was to risk being hurt. I always expected the people in my life to walk out at any moment. I let others' opinions of me control how I viewed myself. The result was I built a house that could hide my true self from the outside world. However, I knew this was not the life I wanted to construct for myself, so I asked my parents if I could look at attending boarding school. But not just any boarding school, a New England boarding school roughly 1,000 miles away from home. I had to pitch the idea to my parents that a fresh start in a faraway place was my best chance at finding out who I was. I believed that I needed to change sites, to relocate to a place where I could have a chance at building myself into the person I wanted to be. Looking back, this was a little bit of a crazy choice, But I knew that only the greatest risks would reap the greatest rewards. So I took a giant leap of faith and decided to move across the country to attend Westminster. I chose a place where no one knew me, a place where I could build a new version of myself. I wanted to leave my past behind me and to have everyone at my new school think that I had a perfect life. I figured, in this new neighborhood, that building the perfect exterior of my house would fix everything, but it didn't. The inside of my house was still filled with those same insecurities that I tried not only to hide from myself, but the world as well. I didn't want to let anyone through the front door of my house out of fear they might see how vulnerable and hurt I was on the inside. But within a few weeks of arriving on the hill, with no parents and no home to go to when the clock struck 3 p.m., I realized I must deal with those not-so-pretty parts of my house. Despite having a fresh start on the Westminster campus, my first few months were not easy, and it did not help that my house was not steady and not ready to weather the storms that would inevitably come my way. I quickly discovered that I needed to build a house that was true to who I am, not who I wanted to be to actually fit into this new community. Pretending to be someone I was not would not help me at truly starting over, because I was not the bubbly, outgoing student I had magically hoped to be when I arrived on the hill. I learned that my dream of trying to make myself come across as someone who's happy and carefree all the time was not going to help me discover the person I wanted to be in this world. I set out on the difficult road of tearing down those perfect but tall walls and created a plan to build a new home on top of the foundation I had already established. Before arriving on the hill, I held some very strong values in my heart. Always be loyal, kind, humble, hospitable, and most importantly, always be respectful. I believed in treating people the same way I do now, but I did not know how to do that fully because my house, myself, lacked the essential support it needed to stand. I needed friends and mentors, teachers and coaches to help me build my home, but admitting I needed other people meant I would actually have to let myself be vulnerable, and that if they left my life at any moment, I could be hurt. However, I quickly realized that the community around me was not going anywhere, and I mean this quite literally. With classes 6 days a week and games on Saturdays, not many people left campus, and I actually loved that, even when the Saturday classes took some getting used to. The first few Saturday morning 7 o'clock alarms ringing through my room were definitely some of the most memorable moments from that fall. But what I remember more than those ringing alarms and slight panic that followed was the feeling of security I felt when I realized that for the first time in my life, the people around me were going to be there with me for the next 3 years. My teachers, my coaches, my classmates, and my friends were all in the same place all the time. The transience of my life in Atlanta, with friends constantly walking in and out of my life, was in the past, and I could finally take a second to breathe and design a plan to create the house, the person I wanted to be. This meant no longer being shy, joining clubs, trying new sports, and learning to become a leader in this community. Most importantly, becoming someone who is willing to let people help me along the way. Despite all of the tests, quizzes, minor dramas, and all of the other difficult things we are challenged to do here as students, the thing that took the most grit for me was finally accepting others into my life again. I began by letting my hallmates on the 3rd floor of Gunn, who would become my best friends, see who I truly was. Instead of tiptoeing around in the hallways and only speaking when spoken to, I began to join in when hall-wide conversations and clothes swapping began immediately following check-in. I joined the madness that erupted in the con room every Monday and Thursday when the entire 3rd floor sat with Mr. Marco screaming over each other, elated to share all that was new in their life. Thank you, Mr. Marco, for the twice-a-week feeds. It was there, after checking in the common room, where I found the second family I never knew I was missing. With just this little start, I began to immerse myself into the community and engage fully in my classes. I found just how deeply my teachers cared for me and developed a love for academics and learning in a different way than I ever had before. I began to attend sports games and cheer for all levels of teams, so excited to watch my friends on the field. Slowly but surely, I discovered the people in this community were the pillars I needed all along. I developed a love for every aspect of this community and realized that engaging with the community is how everyone is able to construct a stronger version of themselves. This led to one of the greatest discoveries in my life. I do not need to stand alone all the time, and neither does anyone else. I needed a community to be there beside me, so I eventually could help others the same way that they helped me. I discovered that I needed the support of my friends, and they needed mine, so we all could be the best versions of ourselves. Westminster taught me that what I needed all along was not to build a house, but to find the place where my house could become a home. A house is just a building, but a home is a place where you belong, the place where you are supported, the place where you are the most vibrant version of yourself. My home is made up of the pillars, supporting beams, arches, and all of the other structural support names you can think of that I lean on: my teachers, my parents, and my closest friends. Westminster will always be the place where I am home. This place, this community, has changed me forever, and the relationships I have formed during my time here are so strong that I know they will continue even when I am no longer physically here. My advice to everyone in this chapel today is to lean on others in this community, because even if you do not want to let them, this community wants to support you. Find the teachers and coaches and advisors who will guide you through anything. I promise they will never judge you. They are there to help you grow. Find the places where you feel most yourself. For me, that was John Hay, but there are countless opportunities for you to become involved in this community. Like building a home, building the best version of yourself takes time, and inevitably, mistakes will be made. But all of these things are just one part of the finished product. Even though your time here is temporary, find the community who will help build you into someone you are proud of and will continue to be when you leave. The community here is one of a kind, and a place where you might just be able to find the people that make your house a home. A large piece of my heart will always belong to Westy, and in my last few months here, I hope I am able to give back to this community that has given so much to me. So, to every single person in this community, thank you for helping me find my home. We will now sing the Westminster Recessional.